Welcome, everyone. Hi, so good to have you here with us today. If you haven't already, please feel free to go ahead and put your name in the chat. My name is Gabriela Martinez. I'm the Associate of Campaigns with the Franciscan Action Network, working on the environmental justice campaign. It is my great pleasure to welcome everyone here to Protecting Oak Flat, Preserving Sacred Sites in Arizona from Mining. We're so happy to have you all with us today. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank our generous sponsors, the Sisters of St. Francis of Philadelphia, the Franciscan Federation, the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati, and our partner today in this webinar, Apache Stronghold. We are so honored to have you here with us today. Franciscans support all people in their legitimate right to full and peaceful practice of their religion. In his time, St. Francis of Assisi took the radical step of reaching out to the Muslim Sultan of Egypt to end a war, and thereafter treated Islam and Muslims with the greatest respect. So today we too show our respect for practitioners of other religions and practice solidarity with them when they face injustice. Again, thank you so much for having us here today. And we will start off like we start every webinar in prayer. I'd like to introduce our opening prayer sayer, Basse Pike, a Northern Arizona University Indigenous Ambassador and a member of Apache Stronghold, to start us in prayer.
Lagoter, she bonsa pai gonse, hastanaya hik betonka initially, Sincross, Arizona, Nasha. Hello, everyone. My name is Basse Pike. I'm Chiricahua Apache enrolled to the St. Cross Apache tribe. I come from the Old People Standing in the Royal Clan and the Last People Coming band, and I'm a member of the Apache Stronghold. And first of all, I just wanted to say thank you all for inviting us and for standing with us in solidarity at a time like this. When it comes to our religion, we all need to come together and unify. And so I want to thank you all, and I'll start the opening prayer. Yasamaka Nashata, Ahi the Chishoshka, Ahi Nagosan Jakna I told the Koskoyo he, Ahi Goncho he, Ahi Ashon Goyo Gan Bigawahi, Zilna Chasi and Zilcho Chabislagotil, Ahi Ashon the Chishoshka. I thanked all the elements of the earth, and I thank God and Creator and Nago-san and the home of our gone people, our sacred mountains, like Oak Flat, for today. And I pray that our webinar today goes great and that everyone that's here has a blessed day and that they have a good night when they go home, or if they already are home. We send blessings to Oak Flat for the land and for Oak Flat that's hurting. And I pray that the Supreme Court filing, that the Supreme Court justices hear our case and they have an open mind to take on our filing. And in all thanks, everyone, thank you.
Thank you so much, Basse. That was really great. Thank you. Now I'm just going to transition to give everyone an overview of our hour together. We will begin with a short video overview, and then we will have a sharing from our advocacy associate, Mervyn DeMello, and move into a discussion with our guest, Vanessa Nosie, for about 25 minutes. Following the discussion session, we will have 10 minutes for questions and answers, but please feel free at any time to submit your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will then close with an opportunity for action and a prayer. With that, I will now turn to start us off with a video.
John him on the Taiwa, This is the ancient and the oldest places that remain for us when it comes to our identity and culture and our religion.
My connection to Oak Flat is I had my sacred ceremony, sunrise dance at Oak Flat, which is where I became a woman, where I danced 4 days at Oak Flat. Oak Flat means so much to me, and I want to pass down my story to my children and have them have the option to have their sunrise dance where their mother had it, where their grandmother had it.
They make it sound like we're in the past and that we no longer exist and that we don't carry on these ceremonies and these prayers, but we do.
That is what keeps us who we are. That is the thing, the spiritual connection to Nagosan, to our Mother Earth, to Yosin, the Creator, to Chichib Dagot Il, to Zithlin Chasian, and to all sacred sites as Indigenous people is what keeps us here today and now.
Was a great overview of just a little bit of what we're going to get into today. And so I'm so excited to get into that portion of this webinar. With that, I will turn it over to our advocacy associate, Mervyn DeMello, and he will give us just a short overview of his time at Oak Flat.
Thank you, and greetings to all, and especially to our guests, Vanessa, Nosie, and Base. I'm speaking to you from the land of the Piscataway people. My introduction to Apache stronghold, Oak Flat, and their decades-long struggle against the multinational copper mining company was in April this year. I was blessed to spend that month in nonviolent presence on the ground and in support of Apache stronghold, especially the spiritual leader, Dr. Wenzel Nosie, Sr. On those sacred grounds, in the Tonto Forest. There I entered into a soul-searching encounter with the sacred and with the violence of desecration. It was a journey that I recognized as a battle between preservation of creation and the potential for deadly destruction. I felt like I was eons away from the hustle and bustle of civilization. My twice daily 4-mile circular walks from where I camped across the arid landscape with tall oak trees and red rock formations jutting out of hard, dirt-packed grounds were like a spiritual pilgrimages. The sun was bright always, and the shaded areas sparse, but the air was constantly cooled by a breeze. I fell deeply in love with those sacred grounds. However, if I looked into the distance to the west, there lurking was this stark, sinister presence of Resolution Copper, a joint venture of 2 foreign companies with plan to extract what is estimated to be the largest copper ore deposit in North America under Oak Flat. Their method of mining, known as block caving, especially eventually would cause the land above the mine to collapse, leaving a crater more than 1,000 feet deep and nearly 2 miles across. I accompanied Dr. Nosie several times on those walks. He said some of the oak trees are over 1,000 years old. He told me how those trees feed people, animals, and that they are going to be murdered. He would ask me to stop and feel the gust of wind blowing across the plateau, disturbing the grasses and rattling tents. You see what I mean? Spirits move. You have to be here to understand. He told me several stories passed to him from his mother and grandmother of how Apache have come to the sacred site to pray, collect water, medicinal plants, gather acorns, honor the people who are buried on these grounds, and perform religious ceremonies since time immemorial. I was privileged to attend a number of those sunrise ceremonies, the coming of age of young Apache women, and to go to a sweat lodge with the men. I was ritually cleansed and blessed. I was shown how to ash myself and to sprinkle ashes around the grounds in preparation of the ceremony to keep the evil spirits out. I even learned to dance along with my Apache brothers and sisters, quite different from the vigorous Bollywood style of dancing that I know. Then there was another journey, one in solidarity with Apache Stronghold that I've committed myself to, and that began during my time at Oak Flat and that I am embarked on until today. Towards the middle of April, I accompanied Vanessa Nosie, who you see in this picture, and Apache Stronghold to file a petition in the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco to rehear a case where the court had previously ruled against them. This journey of support and accompaniment with Apache Stronghold continued over these last 2 months when they and more than 100 others, including Native peoples and Apache Stronghold allies, arrived in Washington, D.C. on a prayer journey that began in Lummi Nation, Washington State, and culminated with the filing of a petition in the US Supreme Court. Their grounds are that the mining operations would destroy their sacred religious site and violate their religious liberty. Now, the evening before I left Oak Flat in April, Wentzler took me to the Gahan Canyon, the Canyon of the Spirits. Seated precariously on a ledge jutting out into the canyon, which you see now in the picture, he prayed in the Apache tradition for almost 30 minutes. The sun set as he prayed. Soon it was pitch dark. To me, it was a mystical experience. I could feel the presence of the spirits he called upon. He told me that he prayed that evil spirits be expelled, that the Apache place of worship be not treated differently simply because it lacks 4 walls and a steeple. He prayed for my safety, for the prayer journey that Apache Stronghold and its allies could possibly take to DC. He reassured me that though I was leaving Oak Flat, whenever I shut my eyes and stayed silent, I would be transported back to this beautiful place of safety where the spirits reside. Now, being of Kenyan birth, my solidarity with Apache Stronghold is rooted in the ancient Bantu philosophy of Ubuntu, interconnectedness and wellness. If the Apache and Apache Stronghold are well, then I am well. Thank you. And now it is an honor and a privilege for me to call upon Vanessa Nosie, who I have got to know since April of this year. She's a person I deeply respect, and it's my pleasure to introduce her. Vanessa Nosie is the daughter of Dr. Wentzler Nosie. She's a dedicated mother to 4 children, employed with San Carlos Apache Tribe Historic Preservation and Archaeology Department as an archaeology aide. She's a matriarch in protection of a tribe's ancestral home and sacred places, and a community organizer with Apache Stronghold. Vanessa has always been active and present for her community and people. I got to see that firsthand. She holds positions such as the co-chair of the Basi Sacred Organization. She's a member of the Mountain of Spirit Runners Protecting, a founding member and youth advisor of the Native Youth Unite, an organizing member of Apache Stronghold, and an organizing member of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call to moral revival. Welcome, Vanessa, and thank you for being present here and being willing to join in this conversation. So I would like to start us off by asking you a question. The months-long journey, what you call the prayer journey in the defense of Mother Earth, from Arizona, and actually I believe from Lummi Nation, from Lummi in Washington State, to Washington, D.C. on September 7th, and the filing of the on the 11th of September in the Supreme Court. You were on this journey, this whole journey, and much more before that. My question to you is, what in your life experience brought you on this journey?
Well, first of all, out there, hello, thank you for having me on this webinar. It's great to connect and be able to share our story. So I want to thank each and every one of you that have been able to put this together, and those that are participating to be able to listen to me and to Marin for this talk on Apache Stronghold. So my journey, my daughter says it the best. My oldest daughter, which is Nalin Pike, she says, when anybody has asked her when has she become a part of the movement, she says it's not a movement, it's a way of life. And she says the first time I took my breath when I entered into this world was the moment I started fighting. Because as Indigenous people, we weren't meant to be here. The United States government has always had a plan to exterminate us. So when my daughter said that, it brought so much truth to my own life, is that when I took my first breath is the moment this journey was started for me. Not knowing exactly where I would be, but everything throughout my life, all my experiences and my teaching and those that have molded me has gotten me to this point. And that's to fight for Chicha Begostel and all our sacred areas, and to protect our Apache religion, but to protect all people and their way of life and their human rights and their religious rights, because we're all in this together. And that's where it's evolved, is that the Apache Stronghold really holds the pieces of how it's not just an Indigenous fight, it's an all people fight, because everyone is affected. So that's where I'm at today. Yulsen Creator has blessed me to be on this earth, and that is when my journey started.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I totally appreciate your underscoring that is the fight of everybody, and that it began, and it always begins, I believe, from the moment of our first breath. That's one thing that I learned, that the wisdom when I was there at Oak Flat. Now, my next question is about, my introduction. I said you were the matriarch and protection of your tribe's ancestral home, sacred places, and a community organizer. Could you tell us what it is like? How did you come to hold that particular mantle of being the matriarch and protection of your tribe's ancestral home? And how have you grown into that role? And how do you carry this mantle?
That's a real, I don't want to say a tough question, but it's for me, I guess that's a words that we have to use for people to understand the work that we're doing, right? And for me, it's only natural, because our responsibility and our way of life falls on us. It falls on me as a mother, as a child of this earth. That is my responsibility to maintain a relationship with the earth and with our community and our families. And my grandmother was really the rock for our family. All her teachings that have been passed down from generations to generation and given to my father, and now to me, that was the conversation that I had with my father, was I can give you all the tools to succeed, but it's up to you on how you want to use those tools. And so in my life, I've been raised with the knowledge and the truth of what's happened to my people and what's happening to all people, and to be proud of where I come from and the resilience and the beauty behind all the devastation that my people have faced. And it is my responsibility now as a mom to carry on that role so that my children and my future grandchildren have a place in this world as Apache people. And as human beings, a blessed gift that God has given us. And so I carry that responsibility with high respect and high I hold it holy for me, that role, because in order for us to exist, I have to do what I need to do as a human being, as an Apache person, so that we can exist, and so that my children do have a right in this world to be able to be who they are, that blessed gift, that how God created us. And so this role doesn't come lightly. And that's not just for my children, but it's for the future of those yet to be born, my nieces and my nephew, and those that aren't blood related, that I want a world that our future generations can live in. And not only for Apache people, but for all people, that they have that freedom of religion and that right. And so it was no questions and no hesitation that I come into that role. As an Apache, we are matriarchal, so we do take our women side, our women's role, but there is a big balance between men and women. And but as a matriarchal, as a tribe that recognizes that and have hold that sacred for us women, it's only right for me to continue on that way of life. And I have 4 girls, so it's only right for me to be able to set that example for my children, so that when it's their turn, and they've already taken that position and that role within their community, because we were raised to love our people wholeheartedly, to make sacrifices in our lives, because our people are important and our way of life is important.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. When I have been in your midst, whether it's been on Oak Flat, even in your home when I was invited there, on the reservation, and then in Washington, D.C., the how you hold yourself, the dignity in all the roles that you play. I've seen you under such a lot of pressure, and I see that dignity that you and your daughters, as you described, holding that role as a holiness. That is something that I've learned from. So I'd like to make a bit of a transition now. My next question, Dr. Nosie, Wensler, you and all others I've engaged with talk about this fight to protect Oak Flat. And some of our listeners could be new to that. So could you describe a little bit of what that fight has been like, and what is threatening to the sacred grounds, the sacred land, Oak Flat, and much beyond that?
Okay, so back in the late 90s, our tribe had gotten word of an expansion on the highway, but our elders had already knew that there was a bigger issue, a bigger reason behind it. And so in the late 90s into the early 2000s, the fight for Oak Flat started happening. Apache Stronghold was created, and the purpose behind to fight to protect Oak Flat was, of course, first an Apache fight. Our religion was at stake, our way of life, our spirituality, our direct connection to the one of the places that we believe that God has touched would be gone forever. You know, because with Rio Tinto and BHP creating Resolution Copper, which is a block cave mine, which they will drill 7,000 feet into the ground, stick chemicals, they'll blast it and push out the copper copper ore. Eventually amount of time, Chichibigoste will be gone forever. It will become a crater that is a mile deep and 2 miles wide. This area is where our people roam, where we were free at one point, where we were able to pick our medicine, where we were able to pick our food, conduct our ceremonies, have that direct connection to what Creator has created. This is who we are as Apache people. And so to learn and to know that our spirituality could be severed and gone forever, it was a fight for our existence. As you look more into the issue with Oak Flat, it also became an environmental issue. That meaning that not only was it an Apache fight, it became a state fight. Because if you look at Arizona and the climate issues that we are in, Arizona does not have the capacity to have another mine. We're in a drought. Arizona is going to be a waste state. They disregard all people. And so once it became an Arizona fight, then it became a global fight. Because again, when you look at the environmental issues, we're facing climate catastrophe. And Oak Flat is a prime example of what's going to happen to the world if Resolution Copper is able to win. We're talking about contamination of the water. Then after it's contaminated, it's going to be depleted. Then we're talking about the rise of heat that's going to go in a 50-mile radius. And you look at Arizona, you look at the metropolitan area of Phoenix, Arizona, they're already hitting 120. And if Resolution Copper is to win and have and once the Oak Flat collapse, then we're talking about another 10 degrees. So no one can withstand 130 temperature. If it's going to happen here, it's going to happen anywhere. And so as Apache Stronghold, we decided to move forward and do it collectively because we knew that the tactics of what happened to the indigenous people, now they're doing it to everyone. Everybody is in that same category. It is divide and conquer. And that has always been the mission for the colonized world. It don't matter what race or what religion that you believe in now. It's just the power of money, greed, to have power to take control. Excuse me. And so this fight has been over 20 years, over 20 year fight that our elders had predicted. Our prophecy was that our religion was going to be the last battle, the last war. And you see that very distinguishedly, excuse me, with Oak Flat, because our religion is at trial. We are taking our lawsuit to the Supreme Court, and it's not a environmental, even though as important as it is, Senator McCain, when he slipped in the Midnight Rider in 2014 for the FY 2015 National Defense Authorization Act, he, in his fine print, said, regardless of what NEPA, the National Environment Protection Act, had recorded or what this environmental impact statement states, it was still going to go forth, exempting them from all federal laws. So even though it's such an environmental issue, there was no way to fight that. It's law. It was going to be happen no matter what. The one way for us to fight this was on a religious aspect, on a religious counter, because it is our religion at stake. It's our human right violation and a freedom of religion violation. And the United States of America does not want to acknowledge that. They never want to acknowledge the indigenous people. We are the dust underneath the carpet. But enough is enough, because we as indigenous people are at the forefront, not only protecting our life and our way of life and our religion, but we are the first, because of our religion is so entwined with Mother Earth, where we get our medicine tools, where we pick our food. We see the devastation that is happening. We're witnessing climate change at the forefront, because if we can't conduct our way of life because of this situation, then that means, hey, we need to wake up. We're not going to have a world livable for all people. Then it was a point to wake up all religion, because as First Nation, as first people of this land, if my religion is at stake, that means you guys have to wake up and remember that your religion isn't safe either, because of the way the government is a corporate government. So Oak Flat is this beautiful area, this beautiful land of abundance of life. You could be born there, you can live your life there, you could die there. It has everything to survive: food, medicine, shelter, all of it, water. But because it doesn't have a structured building, it's not considered holy. But what happens if once all these areas that have our natural resources is completely gone, and they find minerals, they find metals, they find water underneath a church, do you think it's going to be safe? No, because all the other places are gone. They're going to come after us. They're going to come after you. And so this fight was, of course, a survival for us, because for time immemorial, this is how God created us. For over 500 years, we've been fighting for our identity and our right way of life. We were exiled from Oak Flat. We were forcibly removed and put on a concentration camp that was called Hell's 40 Acres, because there was no point of survival there. It wasn't we walked away because there was not sacred, or that we didn't want to be there anymore. We were told we could never go back. And so that's the one thing with the Forest Service and with the United States government, is they say, well, when are they using it? We could never access it once we were put on the reservation. 1800s laws still exist, and we're not even supposed to leave. They have never revised it. And so the beauty about this fight is, yes, we witnessed the ugliness of what Resolution Copper can and will do to devastate Mother Earth, will devastate our environment, will take away our religion, our direct connection, our spirituality will be completely wiped out. I'm a mother of 4 girls. I have 3 young adults, and I have 1 4-year-old. I started over for some reason. God blessed me with another child, and I'm completely blessed, even though I had all my kids out of the house. But I'm in a different fight now. I knew when I had my older children, I was going to give them the tools to pick up the fight. But with my 4-year-old, I'm at a crossroad. Will she at least be able to pick up the fight? Or will she not even have an idea what it is to be Apache? she will never have that identity or that spirituality, because it would be taken from her forever. And that's the harsh reality, that I have to sit there and hold my 4-year-old's hand and say, one day, and I hope this never happens, but there's a possibility I'm gonna have to tell her, see this area, this crater, this is where your people came from. This is where that direct connection we had with God. And we all know, listening to a story, but actually hands-on is 2 different experiences. She will never be able to pick the acorn. She'll never be able to pick the berries or the medicine. So how could she actually really comprehend who she is? And that's what's at stake for me. But this fight has, like I said, is the beauty is that now it's not just an Apache fight. It's an all people fight. And one of the prophecies is that we were one drum, one prayer, one circle. Before colonization, before European settlers, no matter what tribe they were located, they were one tribe, one drum, one prayer, one circle. And our spirituality was so entwined with Nago Sun, Mother Earth, and Creator, that this evil that came from the other side of the world could not penetrate that evilness into us. But he promised us he was going to be back. And our people, our elders say it's in this form of colonization and capitalists. It's not human form, but that we can be that one drum, one prayer, one circle. We need to be that one prayer, one drum, one circle, but it takes all of us, everyone in this world, to save it for the future generations. And this prayer journey, I see it. I have hope. I have witnessed so many faiths of different faith, so many peoples of walks of life, so many different nationalities, from young to old, come together and stand as one. And that's the beauty of this fight with Oak Flat, is that we're going to let the world know that we're all watching and we're all into this together. The truth is coming out. And that's the great thing about this, is that we're shaking that evil, and we're letting the people are going to be able to see, the world's going to be able to see what it is. And that's capitalists, this corporate government that we live in. And we're no different now. What happened to the indigenous people 500 years ago is happening to all of us now.
Much, Vanessa. There's so much that you've said there. That is such a lot of wisdom. You know, it's not just the fight of the Apache people, all people of faith. So we're coming close to this segment of our discussion, you and me, and there'll be an opportunity for questions after this. But I'd like to end by saying that from my point of view, the struggle embedded in faith, the struggle embedded in holiness, the one prayer, one drum, one circle, is what I will take away, and will continue to sustain me. And maybe I will turn over to you. What would you like to say to us as a closing statement? I know you've said such a lot. And then, then there will be some questions after that. What one last bit of nugget of wisdom you'd like to give us from your standpoint?
First of all, I want to thank everybody for believing in us and standing with us, and becoming family. And that's what this world doesn't have anymore. It's so materialistic and so separates us as individuals. Like we have to be out for our own, right? And we would be in such a better place if we learned how to create relationships with one another, but not just as with us as people, but with creating a relationship with Nago Sun, with Mother Earth. A lot of people have forgot that. And if you could create a relationship with the earth, then you will understand the importance of its survival, because for its point of survival, that is our survival, right? If there's no world to live in, then we will, no matter what religion you believe in, No matter if you're poor or rich, you won't survive. And so, you know, I think that's the one message that we need to go to get out and to have those discussions with, is to create a relationship with Mother Earth. Know that now, I mean, like nowadays I was talking to someone and their people don't even know where the water comes on when they turn on the faucet. They just automatically think it's there. But where does that water come from? What's that? Where's that aquifer? And what does it look like? Be grateful and thankful and not so take things for granted, because one day when you turn on your faucet, that water might not come out there anymore. You know, that's the world that we're leading into. But if we stop for a moment and make those relationships not only with one another and understand our differences with respect and to build those bonds, and our world will be a better place for our future generations. I wouldn't have to be on trial to protect my way of life. And so, you know, I think that's really important. I think that's a discussion that a lot of people need to have. Because at one time, not just like my dad says, it's not just us as Native people, as Apache or indigenous. Everybody's indigenous. They all came from somewhere. We were all the same at one point. Just like when you go back to the biblical stories, God talked to Moses in the mountain from a burning bush. It wasn't, not to be any way about a church, but God, you didn't have to be in a building with 4 walls and a roof for God to talk to you. And a lot of people forgot that, you know, and we're just trying to wake you up. That's why my dad says that, you know, we're facing it over 500 years, but colonization happened to everybody else before us. We're trying to hold on to what's old and learn the new way too, because yes, we understand we have to adapt. And we know no one's going anywhere. So if no one's going anywhere and this is your home, let's save it. I'm sure none of us will allow somebody to come in and just barge into our home and start trashing it and then walk out. I mean, I wouldn't let somebody do that to walking into my house. So we need to change train our mind process, and like not only our house is our home, but the land that our house sits on.
Thank you.
And we need to protect that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your wisdom, the time you've taken to share with us. And I will turn over to Janine, who is telling me that there are a number of questions that our listeners have for you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mervyn. Thank you, Vanessa, for that passionate account. It really comes across. Your leadership is beautiful. And we do have several questions. The most frequent question I've gotten was actually, what can we as people of faith, a lot of our audience tonight are Franciscans. We are also very conscious of Mother Earth. What can we as Franciscans, as people of faith, as people in Arizona, I have someone who said, help people in Arizona, how can we best support you in this struggle?
Well, one, it's always prayer. You know, the Apache Stronghold is a spiritual group, a spiritual movement. My dad has never done anything without prayer, without a message or something coming to him. And so the way we have conducted ourselves is prayer. And because that's what's at stake. And so I ask each and every one of you to continue to pray for us, but for action, other sense of prayer, on our website at www.apache-stronghold.com. They have a list of ways to help. There's you can click on a button that talks about action. There's petitions. We always encourage to flood the phones of the Tonto National Forest. Tell them not to do this. Tell them to stand their ground. You know, and what's crazy was that they didn't agree with it. When it first was brought up, they were telling Congress, they were telling everybody this is a bad deal, don't do it. But because the late Senator McCain slipped in that midnight rider as a midnight rider into the NDAA, they had no choice.
Right.
And
Right.
so, you know, flood their phones, call your Congress people, state, local, federal, all of it. Tell them to support the Save Oak Flat Act. Come to Oak Flat. Be with us in prayer and in ceremony. So yeah, go to the website. There's so many. There's the link to show you what needs to be done.
Right. I want to mention Vanessa had run through that website really quickly. We will put that in a follow-up email to everyone who has registered. So I wanted to say that. There is, I think you touched on this a little bit, Vanessa, but what are the other possible detrimental effects to the surrounding communities, like contaminated water? Will that be a factor if this mining thing happens?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, well, of course, if Senator McCain was exempted from all environmental laws, then you know there's something crooked about it, right? And so we have a lot of support from Superior, Globe Miami, even though you probably see otherwise, especially with the mayor. She's a big supporter of Resolution Copper, but their biggest aquifer does come underneath where Oak Flat is at. And it will be contaminated and eventually depleted. And that will not only just affect the town of Superior, but it will also affect the town of Globe, Miami. And even part of the St. Croix Apache Reservation. Then you look at the slur, that's the tailing sites. That it sits 20 miles southeast of Oak Flat in an area called Dripping Springs. They have had several, there's private property, state property. Some people, some ranchers have sold out. There's a community that's been holding it down, one or two private owners, but they don't talk about that either. Resolution Copper won't talk about the tailing sites because they forgot to include it into their EIS when they first came out with it. But once that collapses, it's going to go into the Gila River and it's going to affect the Phoenix area. We're talking about pollution. And in our website, I'll have all that information also on the environmental issues that we're facing. You know, the heat's going to rise. Toxic tailings are going to be airborne. It will affect the Phoenix metropolitan area. It'll affect Tucson, our two major big cities here in Arizona will be heavily affected. So it's a complete environmental issue. It's going to harm us in every which way possible. But even though you see Arizona being pushed for the Go Green state, behind closed doors with Congress and Senate, Arizona is going to be the waste state. And so we're their trial and error. And so it's pretty big.
That brings me to actually one of the final questions here. That we heard just a little bit about your journey to DC and that you were bringing, correct me if I'm wrong, a petition to the Supreme Court. What exactly is that about? Just very briefly, and what are you asking the Supreme Court?
Yes, my dad had a vision that he go cross country and visit with indigenous people of all faith, anybody that, you know, wanted to be a part of Oak Flat and something that have been coming to them or felt from them. And so he dreamt about that being that one drum, one prayer, one circle. So we started in July and went up to Lummi. We had like 20 states. We went across country, meeting with so many beautiful people from all faith and all walks of life. We had people that, what happened to us being displaced and relocated and moved, you know, we've seen the modern version of that with like the LA tenant unit. seeing their homes being destroyed for over profit and them being displaced and not having homes, some being homeless now, cost of living. I mean, everything that we have to remember what they did to the indigenous people. They didn't reinvent the wheel. They did what they're doing to us, doing it to all people now. And so seeing the community come together was so beautiful, but it was so hard to witness. These people, we knew how they felt. It happened to us, and it was just in a different form, you know, and that how they rooted their family and it became their sanction and their home, and that it was being destroyed, just like how they want to do to Oak Flat. Meeting with so many indigenous people that are fighting the same fight against, you know, like the lithium mines and them not being able to go to their sacred site anymore because it got approved and there's a fence around it and they could just stand there and just stare at it. I mean, it was so devastating to see that. We really saw the beauty and the ugly, but the reason and the whole purpose of that journey, and we went, like I said, to different churches, and the churches were so amazing. I remember when we went to DC, we had these young kids praying for us. Oh my God, it was like our future would be such a better place if people would listen to these kids, you know. And then being in Philadelphia with the Asian community, and they're fighting for their home, and how they were displaced, they weren't forced to the United States, created their home. And Chinatown had been in, you know, Chinatown had been there for, it was 150 years when they created it. And that, you know, for over profit, they want to take it away. And here, these are people that nobody wanted. And so it was, like I said, it was beautiful, and it was hard to see and to witness. But the purpose was behind it was to not only take prayers for us as we travel throughout the country to head to the Supreme Court, but we also wanted to take those people's fights, their struggle. We wanted to unify as one, because what happens to one of us affects us all. And Reverend John Mendez said this beautiful thing. He said, when it affects one person directly, it affects people indirectly. But when you look at Oak Flat, it affects everyone directly, no matter where you're at. And because there's so many issues under this huge fight to save Oak Flat. But our purpose was, like I said, to not only receive prayers and blessings for our journey to fight for our religion and our way of life, but it was also to take their fight along with us and to stand together as one, to be that one drum, one prayer, one circle. And it was to be there to hold down that prayer and hold down that ceremony once we got to the Supreme Court, because we did file a petition for an appeal, and that we want the Supreme Court to take our case. This is something that the world needs to witness and hear, because enough is enough, and we're standing together for all people.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vanessa. That is the perfect way to wrap this, because our next little piece of our evening tonight is going to be, Gabby's going to bring us into, to give us a little bit of action. Vanessa, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, your beautiful remarks, and your patience and your story. One prayer, one drum, one circle. I'm with Mervyn. I'm going to go ahead and take that phrase with me tonight. So thank you so much. And I am going to toss it at this point back to Gabby.
Thank
you. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I reiterate everything that Janine shared, and how I hope that people at home can feel the sacred emotion that you're sharing with us. That I and some of us here have had the privilege to be in person with you and feel that. So thank you. As you touched on, as people of faith, we are not only called to prayer and contemplation, but like Francis and Claire, we are also called to action. And so I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to take action. and support our siblings at Oak Flat. We are asking everyone to become a citizen co-sponsor of the Save Oak Flat bill, which is currently sitting in the House Committee on Natural Resources. We ask that you become a citizen co-sponsor, and if you have a little bit more energy, to urge your representative to become a sponsor of this bill and push this onto the floor of the House so that it gets passed. We will send that action, as Janine mentioned, in a follow-up email, along with a recording and other helpful resources like the video we watched, to continue our actions to save Oak Flat outside of our time here today. And just a heads up that we will be continuing our fall environmental justice webinar series with another webinar in November, so keep on the lookout for that. And we always end and begin our webinars with prayer. I would like to invite and introduce Sister Pat Millen of the Sisters of St. Francis of Philadelphia, and a founding member of the Canticle House in Aston, PA, who will give us our closing prayer. Sister Pat. Sister Pat, you need to unmute. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction and the gentle reminder to unmute. Our closing prayer this evening is based on the Season of Creation 2024 prayer. Creator of all, we praise you for your goodness, visible in all the diversity you have created, making us a cosmic family living in a common home. Through the earth you created, we experience love and nourishment, home and protection. We grieve our loss of relation to the earth as a mothering gift from you, our Creator. Our selfishness, greed, neglect, and abuse have caused the climate crisis, extractive mining, and the suffering of our siblings from Oak Flat, honored here today. We confess that we have failed to listen to the groans of the earth and our siblings, the groans of all creatures, and the groans of the spirit of hope and justice that lives within us. May your Creator Spirit help us in our weakness, so that we may know the redeeming power of love and find the hope to continue and share our struggles. May the groans of your Spirit birth in us a willingness to hear and save creation, rather than to demand and extract. We must hope and act together as one, so that the first fruits of hope may blossom. Loving God and our Creator, we pray that you will make us sensitive to these groans of creation and enable us to have the compassion leading to action. Grant us a fresh vision of our relationship with earth and with one another as creatures that are made in your image. And we all say, Amen.
Thank you, Sister Pat, and thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Peace and all good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you.
Thanks to Vanessa. Bassett,
Thank you, guys.
and,